Gotta go.
You're on!
I'm alright, I'm on. Hey everybody, welcome back to another quick tie. I am Tim here with Thursday Night Live Fly Tying and Fly Fishing Boat Outfitters, and this quick tie is brought to you by Western Canada Fly Fishing Guide School. Find out some more information about that. You see the website there, you can go over and check that out. So we're back, this is season 6. We're tying episode 1, the Squirmy Worm. It's gonna look like this beauty. If it'll ever focus for me. Doesn't want to focus. That's fine. That's what it looks like. It's a squirmy worm. This is a gem. If you've never fished one, some people won't. They say it's too dirty, but that's not me. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna be tying out of our season 6 kit. Thursday Night Live Fly Tying, season 6, Miami Vice. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go in there and you're gonna find your package. It should have a number 1 on it. It's gonna look something like this. And you're gonna pull out the stuff with all the pink on it, which is gonna be our Squirmy Worm package. So a really simple packaging and materials for this one. We basically have 2 materials. We got a hook, a bead, and the Squirmy Worm material, and then whatever thread you're gonna use. Tonight I'm gonna be tying with some UTC 140, and it's gonna be in pink, just to kind of match the color of the fly. But you could really use any color, white, black would be fine as well. So let's head on over to the vise and let's take a peek at this fly. So this is the glorious Squirmy Worm. So there's lots of different ways to tie it. I'm gonna take you through the way that you can see here. Although it's a simple tie, the material itself can be quite frustrating to work with because it's rubbery, it wants to move around on you, and sometimes it's difficult to get it to stay where you want it to stay. But I'll take you through how to do that. So let's go ahead and get that one out of the vise. You're gonna see you have these nice hooks sitting right there. Okay, these nice curved kind of scud caddis hooks. And we're gonna grab that pink bead that you have in there, and we're just gonna poke the hook through the small end of the bead, because that's gonna line up that front portion of the bead with the eye of the hook, which is where we want it. Then let's go ahead and get that fixed in our vise, something like that. Make sure it's not gonna move around on you at all. So as you can see, and these guys here, that Squirmy Worm material actually comes right out the head of the bead. Okay, and that's what we want to try to achieve on this. It helps hold it down and secure it kind of where we want it to be. So how I do that, I've actually just grabbed a piece of a little bit heavier thread. This is some black UTC 140. And basically all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wet the ends of it so it comes to a nice point, and I'm gonna match up my tips so I create a loop. And then once I get them together, so it's gonna look something like that. It's kind of hard to see against there, but you just do that. Moisten your fingers again, pull them together like so. Now all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna feed that through from the back side of the bead. Actually, you know what? Gotcha. Not gonna do that quite yet. I'm just gonna put my thread on so it's already on in place. So just start your thread right behind the bead, and then we'll do that next step. So just like so, I'm just gonna get a little bit of thread wraps laid down. Go ahead and trim out your tag end. Set that aside. Now you do wanna lay a nice little thread base down the edge of the hook, a little ways into that bend. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna help hold and give you something to bind that Squirmy Worm material to, okay? So I'm gonna come back and leave my thread somewhere right up near the bead. Now I can go ahead and I can put that other thread just through the bead. You should be able to get it to come out the other side. And like you can see there against my hand, it leaves you that loop, okay? Now I can snug that loop down just a little bit. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to that Squirmy Worm material, okay? So you're gonna have a kind of a funny looking octopus thing, pull off one of them. It's gonna be too long, but that's okay, we trim it at the end. So I'm gonna take the end of that Squirmy Worm and I'm gonna slide it through that loop. Just like so, just leave a little bit extra through, not too much. And then I'm gonna pull down on that other thread, and what you're gonna see is that's gonna suck it into that bead. And I'm gonna pull hard. Try not to actually break that material. So once I get a little bit of it out the front of the eye of the hook, I'm just gonna tighten up that vise a bit. Then I'm gonna use my fingers, and I'm just gonna work to pull the tag end through the bead. And that's how we attach it through. Then set aside your piece of thread. You can use that again on the next one. And I'm just gonna kind of get it to the front length that I want, something like that. The size of the worm can vary depending on the water you're fishing in. I like to keep mine a little bit smaller. I don't want a super long tag out each end. And that's how we pull it through. So we've actually kind of attached it once already right there, but now you're gonna realize some of the frustration of working with this material is as soon as I start putting thread wraps on it, it wants to turn and spin around the hook itself. So I like to pull a little bit of pressure with this end so I can thin it out a bit. And then the first few wraps are very light. I'm pulling almost no pressure at all, okay? And once I get a few down, then I can start to pull and get a little bit more tension down. Now, what I like to do is I like to come down a little ways, probably about a bead length behind the bead, and I'm gonna fold this material back over, and I'm gonna put a few thread wraps up over top. Now, the reason I do this is I just find it helps me get my first initial wraps as we kind of palmer this forward. It kind of gets the first few wraps set up the way I want them. And then I'm just gonna go over and kind of smooth out that ramp a little bit. So the harder you pull on this material, it kind of cinches it down. So I'm just gonna make that nice little ramp down. And now it's really important to bring your thread right up behind where you left that material. Because what it's gonna do for us, and we've done this with like peacock herl in the past, is when I wrap against my thread like so, the thread actually keeps the material kind of up where it wants to be in a nice sequential segmentation moving forward. So then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take and I'm gonna start wrapping this material, just palmering it back up against my thread. And the thread's should hold it in a decent position. And the harder I pull, the thinner my little loops are gonna be. So I don't wanna put too much pressure on it, because I want it to look like some nice segments. I'm just working it back, and I'm only gonna go to about there. Now I wanna pull straight up on this material so that when I do my closing off wraps here, I want it to try to be right on top of the hook shank. And again, start with a few light ones, and then you can build up a couple more tighter ones. But the thing is with this material, if you pull too tight, your thread will cut right through it. And if you don't pull tight enough, it'll be too loose and it'll come unraveled on you. So it's kind of finding the middle ground balance of it. So I'm gonna do a couple little bit tighter ones. That came out the back just kind of the way I wanted it to. Now I'm gonna quickly trim this so it makes whip finishing a little easier. I'm gonna try to match the back portion to be similar to the front. Trim that off like that. And all I gotta do is come in with my whip finish tool. We're actually gonna whip finish this fly, kind of different than normal. We normally whip finish at the head of the fly. We're gonna whip finish this one at the back. So it helps to have a little bit bigger whip finish tool if you have two sizes. We're just gonna do 2 or 3 turn whip finish and snug that down. Now I can't emphasize enough here, guys, you do not wanna put any type of resin on this material. I've learned this the hard way after tying many of them, and putting any type of resin, I've kind of tried them all. It actually completely eats through the material and it just crumbles, and you'll open your fly box and you won't actually have any flies to fish. So that, my friends, is the squirmy worm. Whether it's dirty or not, give it a try. If you're having a tough day, this can often be a complete day saver, and often it's gonna pick them up if you're nymphing them or whatever you're doing. All right, guys, well, this has been another quick tie with Tim from Fly Fishing Board Outfitters and Thursday Night Live Fly Tying. This has been the Squirmy Worm from Season 6, Episode 1. We will see you next week for the next fly.